はい、ただいまご紹介に預かりました NTT データコンサルティングアセットビジネス変革
So
本部の
I'm
野崎と
Nozaki
申しま
from
す。
Consulting
今
in
日は
Asset
IMD ビジネス
Business
スクールのモハン
Transformation
教授をお招きい
Headquarter.
た
We
しま
have a
して、
guest
インタラ
speaker,
クティブデ
Professor
ータが
Mohan
作り出す新たな社会につい
Subramanian.
てお話
So
を
who
い
is a
たします。
professor at
まず冒
IBM
頭
Business
私の方
School.
から
So
その社
the
会、新たな
topic
社
is
会に
enterprise
弊社
transformation in a
NTT デ
new
ータが
society
取り
which
組
is
める内容
created
をご
by
紹介した後、
interactive
モー
data.
ハン教
So
授
we
から
will
その社会
talk
とは一体
about
どういう社
our
会なんだと
experience
いう
and
こ
case
とを
studies
き
at
ちんとご
NTT
説明
Data.
をいただきたい
And
と
we
思
will
い
listen
ま
to
す。
the presentation from
では、
Professor.
私の話に行きます。こちら右側に左の蝶々のを砂鉄で描いてみました。皆さん子供の頃に
When you are
S 極
child,
N 極の磁石を使って
so
そこ
you
に
used
砂
the
鉄を
iron
ばら
sand
まい
to
て
plate, so you created
縞
like
模
a
様を作った
stripe
記憶
patterns.
はあると思いま
So
す。
please
今日はちょっとそれを思い出していただきたいと思います。私
think
これ
about
ほ
the
どまで
memory
綺
one
麗
more
な
time.
模様
So
を
I
作った
have
こと
never
はないですけ
created
れど
such a
も、
beautiful artifacts made of iron
砂鉄
sand.
この一
But
つ
if
一
you
つ
look at
の
each bit,
点を見ますと
so that
これは
each
実は一個
bit
一個砂鉄
is
で
an
すと。
iron
ただの
sand.
砂鉄。
So
これに
by
磁力
applying the
線を当てる
certain
ことによって
magnetic, you
このような
can
綺麗な文様がで
produce
きて、
that
なんと
beautiful
砂鉄が
pattern
別の意
so
味を
that
持つよう
iron
になって
sand
ます。
hence has
今日
a
はこのアナロ
different
ジーを使っ
meaning.
て
So we'd
少
like to
し
talk
お
about
話をしたい
that
と思い
today.
ます。
So
今の時代、
the,
ある
in
もともと
today's
持っていたものが別の力によって
society,
別の意味を持つよ
so
うになる
that
ということが
even
非常
the
に
same
簡単に
thing
でき
can
るようにな
consist
っている
of
の
the
ではないか
different
なと
meanings. So let
思
me
ってい
talk
る
about
次第
that.
です。その
So
例としまし
using
て、
the
スマ
smartphone,
ートフォンで我
can
々
we
人や車
direct
を
the
動
human
かせま
beings
すでしょ
or
うかという
cars?
質問をしてみたいと思います。
So
実
it's
際ス
not
マホで
possible today.
車
The
は動か
answer
せない
is
と思いま
no.
すので、ノーです。
But think
た
about
だ、ウ
Uber.
ーバーなどを思い出してい
They
ただきたいん
say
ですけれども、
I
例えば私が
entered
スマホで
that
どこどこに行きたいと
desired
いうふうに入力をすると、
directions
タ
so
クシーはや
that
ってきて、
the
たとえ
Uber
私が動い
taxi
ていたとして
comes
もタクシーはや
which
って
can
きて、
take me to
私が
the
行きたい場所
desirable
に届けてくれる。
locations.
こ
So
の今
in
見え
this
ている
blue
青い世界の中では
community,
スマートフ
that
ォンで人や車
smartphone
は動か
actually
せているん
can
ではないか
direct
な
the human
思って
beings
いる
and
次第です。
cars. So
これ
this is
が
what the
デジタ
digital
ル
society
という
is
ものだ
all
という
about.
ふうに捉えておりまし
So
て、
using this
今日は
examples,
少しこの例を使いま
we'd
して、
like
デ
to
ジタル
talk
社会
about
という
the
ものについ
future
てご説明
digital
をしていきます。
transformations. So
まずこの下
if
側に見え
you
ている
look at
部
this
分ですが、
bottom
我々
section,
が
and
存
you
在
can
してい
see
るフィ
that
ジ
the
カルなビジネ
physical
ス環境について
world,
書いております。通常
so
の事業、
the regular
企業の活動であったり
operations
とか、
and
我々
activities
のアクティビティというも
are
のは、デー
complemented
タという
by
もので
data.
補足されていると。多くのものは取られていると思いま
So
す。
are
ただ
we
それを十
utilizing
分に
that?
活用でき
It
ている
really
かどうかは
depends.
企業によって違うと思いま
But
すが、
once
デー
again,
タとして取られているのは
data is
事実
used
だと思います。
as a complement.
その取られたデー
And
タ、これが先ほ
you
ど
can
申し上げ
see
まし
this
た
data itself
砂
is
鉄
iron sand.
だと。
Data
こ
itself
れ単
has
体
no
では意味を
meaning.
持たない
This
ビ
is
ット
the
の
bit
砂
of
鉄
iron
です。
sand. So using
そ
the
して
magnetics,
マグネット、磁石ですね。これはデータ主体の
Again,
デジタルのビジネスモデルだ
you
と
can
いうふう
create
に
the
思ってお
data
りまし
business
て、
models,
ここ
which is the
で
data
先ほど
driven.
の
So you
蝶
can use a
々が出て
magnet
きます。
to
砂鉄の
draw
模様
a
です。
butterfly
磁石を
pattern. So if you place a
砂鉄の上に
magnetic
置くとこのような模
on
様がで
iron
きる。
sand,
デジタ
so
ル
you
の
can
ビジ
create
ネ
a
スモデル
beautiful
を市場
pattern.
に
So
適
this
用
is
し
the
た結
result
果
of the
であ
digital
るというふう
business
に
model
捉え
applied
てお
to
ります。
market.
ただ
But
磁石を
unless
実際
you
にかざして
place
みないと
that
どんな模様に
magnet
なるか
on
わ
the
からない
iron
という
sand,
ことで、
you won't be able
当然
to
我々
tell
は
what
かざ
kind
す
of
と
the
きには
design
ど
you
のような
can
模様にな
create.
るかを
So
イ
you
メ
have
ー
to
ジし
think
て
about
磁
what
石
kind
を
of design
持
you'd
って
like
く
to
るんですけ
produce
ど、なのでお客様であったり市場から
So
は
what kind
ど
of
のよう
magnets
な
are
磁石を
required?
使えば
And
どん
you
な模
have
様が
to
できるの
tell
かっていう
that
のをき
to
ちんと教えてよと。
the
逆に
customers,
お
or
客様に
we
我々
have
が
to
提示しな
propose
ければなら
that
ない
type of
ということで、
magnetics to
フ
our
ォーサイト起点
customers.
のアプローチというもの
Therefore,
を
that's what we
NTT
do
データで
as
は
a
取り組んでおります。
foresight-driven approach at the NTT
加え
data.
てこの磁石
And
をい
what
か
kind
に
of
たくさん
data
持って
we
いる
can
か、どんな磁石を持っていて使えるのか、
So
これを
is
NTT データの
exactly
アセ
the
ットとし
asset and
て取り揃
expertise
えてい
that
ます。
NTT
例え
data
ば弊社
has.
におけ
We
る過
have
去の実 績であったり、
experience
お客
in
様の他
each
業種や他
industry,
業界における
including case
実
studies.
実績
And
事例、
also we have
そ
a
してグロー
global
バルにお
track
ける
record
実績などをアセットとして
accumulated
整備し、
asset,
先ほど
which can
の
be
フォーサイトと
combined
一緒
with a
にお客
foresight
様に提示をす
to
る、そういう
provide the
活動
proposal
を
to our
行って
customers.
おります。
So by doing so,
それによって我々が
we
目指してい
can
るお客
bring
様への
this
提
value
供す
to
る
our
価値でご
customers.
ざいます
So
が、
based on the
デジ
digital
タルテクノロジー
technology
の進展を踏まえ
advancement
まして、フォ
and
ーサイト
based
起
on
点
a
で
foresight
お客
centric
様のある
approach,
べき
we
姿を構
envision
想し、
and
そして
should
提
be
案する。
state for our customers.
その実
Just
現方
like
法として、先ほど
butterfly
の蝶
shape,
々のように
we
データ
give
に
the
意味を
meaning
持た
to
せて、
data
デ
so
ータ
that
活
which
用に
can
よる
be
新し
used
い価
by
値を創出
enterprise
す
to
る
create a new
ということを目
values.
指しております。
Another important point is
そしてもう一つ大
innovation.
事なのが、 この下に書いてあります既存ビジネスをアップデートするというところですが、先ほどの Uber のように、例えば Uber のようなサービスをするのに、車やタクシーからゼロから作っていると、到底間に合いません。不可能だと思います。ただ、組み合わせることが非常に容易になったデータを使ってビジネスモデルを組み立てる。足りないデータは取ればいいし、足りない機能を作ればいいということで、デジタルビジネスを起点に既存のビジネスをアップデートしていく、そういう活動をNTTデータでは行っております。そしてそれをすべてのお客様に高いレベルで提供できるように、現在フォーサイトデザインメソッドというメソドロジーを整備して、すべてのプロジェクトでご提供できるように取り組んでいるところです。今日は簡単にご説明をいたします。まず真ん中の部分、エンドユーザーへの提供価値と書いてありますが、価値そのものでございますカスタマージャーニーと、それを実現しているバリューチェーン、この2つをお客様の現状のビジネスを紐解いて見える化いたします。それが環境テクノロジーの変化によってどのようなインパクトを受けているのか、またデジタルテクノロジーの変化によって、さらには先ほどの砂鉄のように全ての情報がデジタルになった、ものすごくカスタマージャーニーであったりバリューチェーンはもう入れ替わったりする、激しく動くという中でどのようにインパクトを受けるのか、そしてお客様自身が市場に対してどのような提供価値を提供し続けるのか、その整合性を取りながら将来のあるべき姿というものをご提案し、さらに弊社が持つアセットというものを踏まえてお客様のあるべき姿の実現計画を一緒に作っていくという活動をしております。例えば保険会社様に我々が提供しようとするとどうなるかということをサンプルにお示ししますが、これまでお客様の中ではあらゆる真ん中に見えてありますあらゆる以外の対応というものを中心にマーケットに対してビジネスをされておりました。例えばモビリティという領域、それが時代が進んでサイバーというところまで広げていく。ただマーケットやエンドユーザーの方からは万が一を減らし備える会社であってほしいという強い期待、さらには暮らしのいつもを下支えしてほしいという非常に大きな期待というものを受けてお客様は事業をそれぞれの領域は非常に大きく重いテーマでございますけれども、そのテーマごとにあるべき姿を我々は描き、そして私どもが提供できる提供価値というものがどういうふうに貢献できるのかというものを議論しながら実行計画を立てていっているところです。ここには NTT データが持つサービスであったりとか、目まぐるしく変わる技術をいかに事業に適用するかという技術力、そういったものも踏まえてお客様のあるべき姿を描き実行計画に落としているとご理解ください。今は保険業界に対して書きましたけれども、他各業界のフォーサイトも発信し、皆様にご提供できるようにしております。そしてこれを高いレベルで全てのお客様にご理解ご提供できるように、昨年7月に NTT データではコンサルティングアセットビジネス変革本部を立ち上げまして、今のような取り組みを全社挙げてできるように推進しております。こちらについては個別にお問い合わせいただきましたら喜んでご説明を差し上げたいと思います。さて今日ですが、デジタル時代のビジネスモデルにおけるアナロジーとして磁石というものを見せました。そして磁石を市場に当てるとどのようなビジネスの効果が出てくるのかということを蝶々の模様でお示しいたしました。これはなぜこれができるかというと、データというものはフィジカルなものと違って非常に組み合わせやすいということで、いかに早くいかに効率的に組み合わせていくかということがこれからのデジタルのビジネスにおいて肝になっていくから、今日これをお伝えした次第です。そしてこのデータというものはこれまでのデータとは大きく違ってインタラクティブデータであるというふうに提唱されているのが今日一緒にご登壇いただいております IMD ビジネススクールのモーハン教授です。ではここからモーハン先生をお呼びしたいと思います。Hello, Dr. Mohan. Hello. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Nozaki-san, for the kind introduction.
Yeah, at the beginning, for everybody's information, last year, Dr. Mohan published a book entitled The Future
of competitive strategy. So in this talk, in this today's session, Phil will explain the book and talk about what interactive data is and what it creates. With further ado, I'd like to hand over to you.
Thank you, Nozaki-san, for that kind introduction. It is truly my pleasure to be here and share some of my thoughts on my recent book, The Future of Competitive Strategy, published by MIT Press. The book focuses on what I call legacy firms, or firms that have built their legacy before the arrival of the internet. These are companies that make traditional products and services, not the digital platforms like Amazon or Google. So my focus is on legacy firms. But before we talk about the future, I would like to quickly review three fundamental foundations or anchors on which our thinking of competitive strategy has been based for over the last 40 odd years. First assumption, all our revenues come from our products and services, whether they are physical products like cars or excavators, or services like bank loans or insurance premiums. Second, our value chains, which is a whole bunch of interdependent activities, right from raw materials up to the product sales, they help position our products within our markets. And third, the nature of the industry that we are in hugely determines how profitable our products are. And a lot of competitive strategy thinking has been about, what products, what markets, how to position our products based on our value chains, and of course, how to marshal the forces in the industry to drive competitive advantage. Now, these assumptions were great for the industrial era, but they are not adequate for the modern digital world. And what I believe the future of competitive strategy is to take our foundations of products, value chains, and industry characteristics into a new world where competitive strategy is determined with the power of data through digital platforms and digital ecosystems. So my book goes into how legacy firms can make that transition. To make that transition, it is important to understand three fundamental inputs. One, what is new about data? Data has always been around, but there's something different now in the new modern world. Second, what do we mean by digital ecosystems when it comes to legacy firms, not just the platforms like Uber or Google or so on and so forth? The third is about thinking about a new framework for competitive strategy based on this new understanding of data and digital ecosystems. So let me begin with the first input of what is new about data. And for me, as Nozaki-san introduced me, the big shift from the industrial world to the new digital world is this shift from what I call episodic data to interactive data. Episodic data comes through discrete events. Interactive data comes through a continuous stream. To understand the difference, think that you go to a bookstore like Barnes & Noble, you spend about 1 hour inside the store, and then you buy one book, episodic data. The only data that Barnes & Noble has about the whole transaction is that somebody bought a book. And that data is treated very differently. It is not used in real time. It is stored, aggregated for cumulative insights after the fact. On the other hand, imagine you spend 1 hour on Amazon and you bought nothing in that 1 hour, but they have a lot of data about what titles were you looking for, what other titles you saw, how much, what were your interests, and so on and so forth. That is what I call interactive data that is streamed based on your interaction with their website. And today, because of sensors and the Internet of Things, it is possible for legacy firms to also capture interactive data and empower their business models with very new kinds of ideas and opportunities. But for that, you need new strategic thinking. In the old world, with episodic data, data was meant to support products. So when you got data, you were in Barnes & Noble, you were trying to think about how do I make my store more profitable? Or how do I try to sell more books? With interactive data, the role gets reversed. Now your products become ways by which you support data, because your products become conduits or ways by which you can capture interactive data for new kinds of business opportunities. And my book goes into a lot of detail about how companies can make that shift. The second input is about digital ecosystems. And I focus on legacy firms again. And for them, I describe digital ecosystems as a combination of production and consumption ecosystems. And how do I describe them? Let's start with production ecosystems. It starts with your existing value chain. And it began many years back with traditional IT or information technology, wherein we used the value chain to become a network of data generators and recipients, which is what digital ecosystems are. But in the old world, through information technology, we used that network of generating data and sharing data within the value chain largely to improve operational efficiencies. But today, with sensors and with the Internet of Things, and especially when you get interactive data from your products, you can use your production ecosystems to also generate new revenue streams. For example, Caterpillar gets interactive data from their machines and are able to predict when a component can fail and generates new revenue services saying that if you give us subscriptions, we can give you predictive maintenance services. Now, this is a new revenue stream that comes from your value chain, but which is operating now as a production ecosystem. The second part of this digital ecosystem is new and more interesting in some ways. This is about a network of complements of products. Now, complements are entities or objects that increase the demand for a product. So in the case of a car, for example, you need roads, otherwise there's no demand for your car. You need petrol stations or gas stations, otherwise there is no demand for your car. In the old world, we understood that these complements existed, but it was never part of our business models. But in today's world, because these complements get connected, they create what I call a consumption ecosystem. So cars are connected to roads because of traffic data. Cars are connected to gas stations, and a car can tell you when you're running low on petrol or gas, it can take you to the nearest petrol station. But there are other objects that become complements and connected complements. For example, in Ford cars, you can order coffee through Alexa, and the car gets connected to the nearest Starbucks, and Starbucks knows your exact arrival time, the choice of your coffee, keeps it ready at the right temperature for you to come pick up your coffee, and the payment and all those kinds of things happen in the background. This is what I call consumption ecosystems. And that ecosystem keeps growing as more and more complements get connected, like parking spots or a whole bunch of other transport services that goes into taking the car from the old world into a new world of mobility. And again, my book gives a lot of examples about how firms can create consumption ecosystems. The big difference from the production ecosystem is that here, the product has to operate as a digital platform. So Ford connects a driver with a Starbucks just like Uber connects drivers and riders, right? And people who are providing car services. So consumption ecosystem. The third input is about competitive strategy based on these two inputs. So if you look at it, I call this a 4-tier model for digital transformation, which is, it starts with interactive data. And the first tier is when you use interactive data largely from your existing assets. For example, Ford may use augmented reality or virtual reality to improve efficiencies in inspection of paint jobs, replacing visual inspection with interactive data through these new technologies. That is the first tier. The second tier starts coming in when you start getting interactive data from customers. This is a bigger challenge. So if you're getting interactive data from customers, you can know a customer's needs more accurately and maybe improve your efficiencies in product development or R&D. The third tier is when you use interactive data from products to generate new revenue streams like predictive maintenance services. The fourth tier is the most difficult, when you convert a product into a digital platform and use interactive data to share it with external entities and create exchange transactions. So a lot of competitive strategy now becomes, what tier are we in? What tier should we be in? And how do we get there? So that is how I would explain production and consumption ecosystems and digital strategy based on that. Some examples in the real world: insurance, for instance, has been a lot about data, but mostly about historic episodic data. We have average risk based on archived data on people, say health, for example, or demographics. And we use larger pools of people to reduce average risk. And that's how we create profitable premiums. If I have a pool of customers with lower average risk, I make more money, and I use data to know how to reduce average risk. In the new world, this is about interactive data, wherein I can pinpoint risk coming from individual objects or people, and I can generate new services to prevent risk. So the model shifts in some ways. That is, you're not essentially trying to compensate risk, but you're trying to avoid risk. And here's an example of an insurance company which uses sensors and interactive data from pipes in homes, where if the temperatures dip, the pipes have the risk of freezing and creating damage. But these sensors can pinpoint risk from specific homes and also take preventive action in terms of maybe running some hot water through the pipes when the danger is there and preventing risk, and charging new revenue streams or creating new revenue streams based on that ability. Here's an example of autos wherein through a lot of sensors and IoT, and again through interactive data, you can immediately process claims, sometimes within minutes or seconds, because you know exactly what the damage is. So you're using interactive data to improve your efficiencies in terms of processing claims and also giving new digital experiences to your customers. So I hope this gives you a flavor of what my book is about. And thank you for inviting me over here and giving me an opportunity to talk about this book.
Dr. Mohan, thank you very much for a thought-provoking talk. And I hope today's audience will leave with understanding of consumption ecosystem and transaction interactive data. So
thank you.
So I'd like to ask you a few questions if time allows, help them understand better.
Sure.
Yeah, my first question is this. The use case at the bookstore was easy to understand. So, but could you tell us a little more about the differences between interactive data and episodic data?
Sure, absolutely. So here's another example of a McDonald's versus Facebook. So look at what episodic data can do with a traditional firm like McDonald's. In 1994, they touched 100 billion burgers of sales. And after that, they just stopped counting because it did not matter, right? Episodic data is used in aggregate. So they know by now that, okay, we are going to sell so many burgers, we need so many physical assets. And that is the kind of way in which you use episodic data. On the other hand, with Facebook, they can know, for example, when a couple is likely to get married before the couple is aware. Now, why is that? Because data comes from pinpointed sources and it is used in real time in many ways to kind of give you very different kind of insights. So let's dive a little deeper into this. Because data comes from pinpointed sources, which is a specific person in terms of how that person is interacting with your platform, you get far deeper pinpointed insights on every object. So it is about how an individual Caterpillar machine is operating, or an individual user of a sensor-equipped shoe is running or walking. You get data from pinpointed sources. Second, it comes through huge volumes because it is a continuous stream of data. And because of that, you can generate a lot of insights about individual profiles, whether it is an individual machine, whether it is an individual customer who is looking for a bank loan, or whether it is an individual person who is subscribing to your insurance services. You know insights from every specific individual. Now, because of this, the analytics become far more powerful. So with episodic data, what we see largely is descriptive analysis after the fact. But with interactive data, you can get into far more predictive analysis and prescriptive analysis. You can predict when a machine is about to fail, and you can even prescribe what a machine should be doing so that it doesn't fail. As we saw with the insurance example, it can predict if a pipe is going to get frozen, but it can even prescribe an action by saying that hot water can flow right now and make sure that the pipe doesn't freeze. The other very important aspect of interactive data is that it can be used in real time. As you see with an Uber, the sharing of data is in real time. That is, a driver and rider needs to know in the right time. With episodic data, we don't use it in real time. And because of that, and because we use it only after the fact for aggregated insights, we don't share it openly with external entities. Real-time data can be shared with external entities because its value is transient. So if a Caterpillar machine has just finished digging, in real time, it can tell other fabricators or a concrete pourer or even a rival like Komatsu that I finished digging for the next activity to begin. And by that, you're actually improving project efficiencies. Now, you can share it with Komatsu because that real-time data is transient. The value of that data that I've just finished digging has no competitive relevance, and you can share it within a broader digital ecosystem. And that is why interactive data is extremely, extremely relevant. In fact, if you do not have interactive data, you cannot get into the consumption ecosystems and you cannot get into tier 4. You cannot even get into tier 3 because to give data-driven services, you generally would need interactive data coming from customers because your ability to share and get this data from external entities.
Thank you. And my second question is about the 4 tiers. What should the legacy firms do to enter the tiers of consumption ecosystem?
Thank you. That's again a very good question. So to construct consumption ecosystems requires a few steps. First, you want to identify what kind of objects are complementing your product. The car example that we talked about earlier, we noticed how roads, gas stations, or even independent service providers can be new connected complements because based on the data in which where the car is, or if data shows that your car is having low tire pressure, the car can connect you to the nearest service station or the nearest independent service provider who can fix your tire. A light bulb can have new connected complements. For example, if the light bulb is collecting data on motion through sensors, and if in a home, nobody is supposed to be at home, and if it senses motion, it can connect to a security system and become part of a security package. So these are new connected complements that are coming to existing products. Now, you have to first identify those complements and figure out how you can create new services by connecting these complements. Then you want to create a digital platform that connects these complements and generates those services. And of course, for that, you also need what I call an open API policy. APIs are software protocols that allow different software programs to talk to one another. In legacy firms, typically these APIs are internally focused to share data internally within value chains. For consumption ecosystems, you need to open up your APIs so that external complements can connect with you. So a parking lot can connect with you, or an independent service provider can connect with you, or a Starbucks or any other retail entity can connect with you when you're driving your car. So again, in my book, I provide a lot of detail in terms of how, in what conditions can products generate these new kinds of digital platforms and extend their value chains and production ecosystems into consumption ecosystems.
Thank you very much. This session has been so informative. However, we don't have much time, so I have to wrap up this talk. Once again, thank you, Dr. Mohan, for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nozaki-san, for inviting me over.
最後になりますが、今日お話しいただきましたモーハン教授の本 The Future of Competitive Strategy 今年の4月下旬日本語版を発刊するように今 NTT データにて翻訳作業をしております発売まで楽しみにお待ちください本日はご清聴いただきましてありがとうございました
Thank you for joining us today.